Hey everyone, welcome back to Afterlife Experiences. Before we jump in, drop your country in the comments below. It's amazing to see how these real-life experiences are connecting people from all around the world. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any powerful testimonies like these. Let's get started.
So, here's what happened. I was a veteran, proud to serve my country, and I carried that pride like a banner, literally waving the American flag at rallies, parades, and memorials. It was a symbol of freedom, sacrifice, and hope, everything I believed in. But one day, something changed. I died. Not in a metaphorical way, but truly passed on for a brief moment. And what I experienced on the other side shook me to my core. I found myself standing before Jesus, and he looked at me with eyes full of love and seriousness. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. Now wave this. That moment wasn't just symbolic. It was a call, a mission, a challenge that I still grapple with every day. This is my story, the story of a man who died waving an American flag and came back with a new flag, a new purpose, handed to him by Jesus himself. So, standing there, right before Jesus, the weight of everything I'd lived through, the battles, the ceremonies, the years of waving that flag, hit me all at once. I was proud of my service, proud of what that flag meant to me and so many others. But when Jesus said, "Now wave this," I had no idea what he meant. What could possibly be more important than the symbol I'd carried for decades? Then he reached out and gave me a different flag. Not red, white, and blue. Not made of cloth. It was radiant, glowing with a light I've never seen, a banner of peace, love, and unity. And he told me, this is the flag the world needs now. At first, I was confused, even resistant. How could this new flag replace the one I held so dear? But as I looked closer, I realized it wasn't about replacing or forgetting. It was about understanding what true freedom meant. Freedom not just of a nation, but of the soul. Jesus began to show me visions. People divided by hatred, families torn apart by anger, communities blinded by pride and prejudice. The old flag symbolized courage and sacrifice. Yes, but this new flag represented a higher calling. To love, to forgive, to bring people together beyond politics and borders. I was humbled. My whole life had been about waving a symbol that meant one thing to me, but now I was being asked to carry a symbol that meant something far greater. And with that, I understood that waving this new flag was more than an act. It was a commitment, a pledge to live differently, to be a light in dark times. As I stood there holding that radiant flag, Jesus began to speak to me, not in words, but in a way that touched my soul directly. He showed me the consequences of division and hatred, how tearing each other apart weakens us all no matter what country or cause we stand for. The wounds we carry are deeper than politics or patriotism. They're spiritual. And the healing begins when we choose to wave this new flag, a flag of mercy, compassion, and unity. I remembered all the rallies and protests I had attended, how sometimes the passion I had for my country had crossed the line into judgment or anger towards those who thought differently. I had let pride blind me, and now I saw the damage that caused, not just in others, but in myself. Jesus reminded me that true patriotism isn't just about waving a flag or defending a country. It's about loving the people behind the flag, the strangers, the neighbors, the ones we disagree with. It's about putting down the weapons of division and picking up the tools of reconciliation. I felt tears streaming down my face, not because I was ashamed, but because I was finally seeing the bigger picture. I was being called not just to honor my nation, but to honor humanity. And then Jesus said, "This flag isn't held with your hands. It's held with your heart and your actions. live it. It was a moment that changed everything. The old flag I had proudly waved was still important, but this new flag became a call to a higher purpose, one that transcends borders, politics, and even personal beliefs. Coming back to life wasn't like flipping a switch. When I opened my eyes in that hospital bed, everything felt different. The world, the people, even myself. The physical pain was real, but what hit me hardest was the weight of that new flag Jesus had given me. It wasn't something I could carry in my hands anymore. It was a responsibility I had to live every moment. I remember the first time I told my family about what I'd seen and heard. At first, they were skeptical, confused even. But the sincerity in my voice, the change in my heart, they couldn't deny it. Slowly, they saw me begin to live differently. I stopped arguing over politics or pointing fingers. Instead, I started listening. I started reaching out to people I had once dismissed. The rallies and protests, I still cared about my country, but now I saw that waving the flag without loving the people was meaningless. I started volunteering, helping veterans struggling with loneliness, supporting families torn apart by hate, and working with organizations promoting peace and reconciliation. People noticed the change. Some were inspired, others suspicious. But I kept moving forward, driven by that call from Jesus. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being willing to try, to live the flag I had been given. Every time I feel discouraged or tempted to go back to old ways, I remember those words. Now wave this. It's not just about patriotism anymore. It's about unity, mercy, and love. Things the world desperately needs. As I move forward, I realized that waving this new flag wasn't just symbolic. It required action. It meant confronting hard truths about myself and the world around me. I had to face my own biases, my pride, and the times I let anger and fear guide my decisions. That was the hardest part. Looking inward honestly and admitting my faults without making excuses. I started to reach out to people I never thought I would. Those with different views, backgrounds, and experiences. Conversations that once felt impossible became opportunities for understanding. I listened more than I spoke. I sought common ground instead of division. One moment stands out vividly. I was at a community event, standing beside someone who had once been a vocal opponent of many of my beliefs. We shared stories, tears, and laughter. In that moment, I realized the power of grace and the potential of healing when we choose compassion over conflict. The flag Jesus gave me was more than a symbol. It was a call to be a peacemaker, a bridge builder, and a servant of love. It wasn't easy. Sometimes I stumbled, sometimes I doubted. But every step forward was a step away from the darkness I had seen in that other place. And through it all, I held on to that promise. Now wave this. It became my mission, my prayer, and my purpose. Living out that mission meant embracing a new kind of courage. The courage to stand for unity when everyone else was shouting division. To speak kindness when anger felt louder. To forgive when bitterness felt easier. I had to learn that waving this new flag wasn't about waving a piece of cloth, but living a lifestyle of love, patience, and grace. There were days when it felt overwhelming. The world seemed so broken, the hate so loud, the wounds so deep. I faced criticism from all sides. Some said I was naive. Others accused me of betrayal for speaking across divides. It stung. But every time doubt crept in, I remembered that moment standing before Jesus, that radiant flag in my hands, and his simple command, now wave this. That moment became my anchor, my source of strength. It reminded me that this wasn't about me, but about something bigger. It was about healing a world desperate for peace. It was about honoring the sacrifices of those who fought for freedom by building bridges rather than walls. I began sharing this message openly through speeches, social media, and local community work. I told my story not to gain sympathy, but to inspire change. Because if a man like me, once so entrenched in pride and division, could be called to a higher purpose, then anyone could. This flag I wave now isn't just mine. It's for every person longing for hope, every family torn apart by hate, every soul searching for light in dark times. As I continued to live this calling, I realized that waving this new flag meant becoming a servant, not of fame or recognition, but of those around me. It meant putting down my ego and picking up the needs of others, especially the forgotten and broken. I started volunteering more, listening more, and loving more, even when it wasn't easy. One of the most powerful lessons came from meeting veterans like myself who struggled with pain, loneliness, and anger. I saw how the old flag represented sacrifice, but also reminded many of battles still being fought inside. I shared with them what I'd learned, that true freedom isn't just on the battlefield, but in the heart. Together, we work to build community and offer hope. That radiant flag Jesus gave me became a symbol not only of unity, but of healing and restoration. Every story of reconciliation, every act of kindness, every bridge built was like waving that flag proudly. Sometimes I look back on my old life and feel sorrow for the time wasted in division and pride. But I'm grateful for the chance to change, to be part of something greater. That moment with Jesus wasn't just a near-death experience, it was a new birth. Now, I live every day committed to waving the flag He gave me with love, courage, and unwavering hope. Here we are, the final part of this journey, and I want to leave you with something real. Waving this new flag hasn't been easy. It's a daily choice, a battle against old habits, fears, and the pull of the world around me, but it's also the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. The flag Jesus handed me is more than a symbol. It's a lifestyle, one of mercy, compassion, and relentless hope. It's about standing up for the broken, loving the unlovable, and choosing peace in a world that often chooses chaos. Sometimes I still see the old flag waving in the wind, and I honor it, because it represents sacrifice and freedom. But now, I know the truest freedom comes from love, from waving a flag that unites rather than divides. If you take anything from my story, I hope it's this. No matter where you are, no matter what you've done, there's always a chance to change, to pick up a new flag, to live a new purpose. Thanks for listening. Keep waving the flag of love, wherever you are.